Today on the show, it's here. It's finally here. The season finale of Legion. All this and more on What the Hell Did We Just Watch? Welcome to another episode of What the Hell Did We Just Watch? I'm your host, Emotional Lou. How was everybody's weekend, huh? I know it's sad because why? It's Legion Mondays. So what happens on Legion Mondays? We get to hear a weekly episode of Legion, but guess what? This will be the last episode of the Legion series for this podcast for the time being. Why? Because they're going to take a break now. The good news is we're getting a season 2. The bad news is there's nothing really to talk about Legion. If I have something to talk about, I promise I will definitely put it on the podcast and add it to the playlist for the Legion so you guys can hear it if there's something to talk about. Okay, so please be patient, and we'll definitely get through this time where we have to wait 1 full year for Legion Season 2. But on that note, why don't we just go ahead and start with Legion Episode 8, Chapter 8.
You were right about David. He's a world breaker.
Wednesday.
The power is real. You gotta accept it.
I don't care if you save me. Save yourself.
Commission to launch the Peacemaker.
You don't have to be afraid.
Look at you. You're gods, and someday you're going to realize you don't need to listen to us anymore.
Isn't that the history of the world?
Well, that was the season finale. It's here. It's finally here. And it was kind of very timid, if you ask me. But until the last 10 minutes, of course. And that's okay. That's totally fine. Because we got so much in the last 2-3 episodes of kind of like intense, kind of like action sequences and also any kind of like dramatic flow of a lot of things going on. Now it's time to wrap it up. And the way that they wrap this up is actually it's very uncommon. It's very unpeculiar. And we get to see the interrogator. Yeah, the interrogator, that guy from the first episode, the guy that we saw, the last person that we saw in the last episode of Legion from last week. And we're, taken into like the journey of how he got to where he was, which is the last part where we saw him in the last episode. And basically him surviving the explosion at the indoor pool and then him recovering from his injuries because he has like 40% burns on his body and everything, and he just like looks horrible. And we get to see his journey of how he gets to become, get put back into Division 3, into D3, but we get to see something very different. Diversity at its best right now, because not only is our foe, one of our villains of the show alive, but the interrogator, because he doesn't have a name, the interrogator is a gay man who has a husband that's in the same division as, with him, but they also adopted a black kid, a black son, like that is like super like interesting. You know what I mean? So, if there's anything that you guys wanted to, my views on how I feel about those kind of like diversities on television and in film, and how homosexuals are not being typecasted anymore in television and in films, just take a quick listen to the episode That Beauty and the Beast Dilemma that is a few episodes back, and you'll get to hear how I feel about homosexuality in film and television and all that stuff. So definitely would like you guys to listen, just so you can see how, what my opinion is on that. So back to it. So we have seen that David has come to terms with his powers. He is okay with how who he is. He, especially due to the fact that he has a brand new headband accessory, thanks to Carrie, who is able to subdue Farouk, the devil with the yellow eyes, Amahl Farouk. I don't know if I'm butchering his first name, but we're going to go with Farouk, or the devil with the yellow eyes, whichever way you like to, set it up and all that stuff. But he has brand new headgear that is like keeping him, himself. David is himself while he has this, but there's a problem. We learned in the last episode that Farouk is not really kind of like trapped per se. He kind of put a crack in the coffin, or at least Lenny did, because he takes the image of Lenny, and that's awesome because it gives a purpose to Aubrey Plaza's character even longer. So that means that we definitely will get to see her in season 2, and I'm very happy about that because she brings this certain kind of charm into the show. So glad that they're able to find a way to keep her useful in the show, even though our villain has been, basically out. We know what he looks like, we know who he is and all that stuff, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. So, but I'm glad that they're going to still implement her, and they did such a great way to implement her, and we'll get to it where I'm talking about. So Carrie is still very concerned because even though he has that headband on, he knows that it's temporary. He's trying to make sure that that David gets to the lab as quickly as possible so they can figure out a way to get Farouk out of David. But before we get there, again, the interrogator, he surrounds everyone. That's where we left it out in the last episode. And the way that David has come to terms with his powers, like I said, is that in literally like 2 seconds, he was able to round up every single soldier there, and he literally made like a freaking pyramid out of them, like a freaking column. That was pretty fucking cool. They used like a force push, and he put everybody there. Yeah, the force push. Star Wars. That's just the way that I am. I always bring a reference to Star Wars no matter where I go. So the interrogator is overwhelmed. He has agreed and has surrendered himself to the people there at the Summerland, and so now he's a prisoner. He's being interrogated, and we find out also the war that's going on. The war that is going on. It's a physical war between humans and mutants. That's a little something that's cool, and it's a little something that's different because in the X-Men series, in the films, it was never really against humans versus, there was never a physical war between humans and mutants. It was more of a political standpoint from the films, and this one is more of a physical thing. It's humans versus mutants. And I think that's what's very cool, that this is how they separate themselves to what the X-Men series has done, and they're doing it in a amazing way. So, and I'm still interested, and I'm still watching, and I'm still curious, and I can't wait until next season for all that kinds of stuff. So I'm very, very excited. We also know that Oliver is back. He's out, and Melanie is trying to connect with him, but there's a slight problem. Oliver still kind of has amnesia from being in the astral plane so long. Melanie actually takes it upon herself to ask Oliver out on a date. And he says that he kind of remembers something, and he can't really put it on his he can't make it out. He doesn't really understand what's going on who she is, but she's willing to accept it and willing to rekindle a kind of fire, and it shows, and I think that's very sweet, and that's fantastic. So let's see where that goes. I can't wait. So back to the interest at hand. We got the interrogator. They have him. And now he's the one being interrogated. You know what I mean? So, but what we learned is that inside of his dead eye, there is a camera inside there, and D3 is able to see everything that he sees. So was him getting caught like the whole time, was that a plan? Was that a scheme? It looks like it is, because he's able to see everything. He's able to see what's going on. You know what I mean? So, but there's something that's different. David wants to see if he can convince D3 that there is even a bigger threat than the humans versus the mutants. And it's going to take some time to, make convincing that story. But while we're watching, we're seeing that we're getting some moments where Sid is getting visions from Lenny, Farouk, the devil with the yellow eyes, and he is telling her as Lenny, who is beautifully dressed and looks like a zombie that is like quality right up there from The Walking Dead. But she's telling him that I can only leave David if I want to. If you try to force him out of me, I will kill him. I will try my hardest to kill him. So that scares Sid, and she's trying to, that's unsettling. She doesn't believe it at first, but then when we come up to the part when they put him in a machine where Oliver and Carrie, have invented something that might work, and he starts to like try to separate himself from Farouk, and they're all trying their hardest to do it, but Sid keeps having these images in her mind of Lenny, and it starts to make her get worried. And while he is subdued and he's trying to like get himself out of there, he starts bleeding out of the nose. You know what I mean? And he starts like really freaking out, and she just can't take it. She starts getting really, really worried, and she starts hearing about what Lenny said and that he was going to die. You know what I mean? So that's pretty intense, but we're going to take a stop right there, and we're going to just go back a little bit. And let me tell you about what's pretty cool about the interrogator, which I did leave out, but I'm trying to see if this all pieces real nicely. I don't want to do it in order, and I'm kind of backtracking a little bit because I wanted to make note of this really nice touch that they did in the show, where the interrogator, like I said, we start seeing his backstory, where he comes from, who he is, his life, his family, his recovery from his injuries. And one of the most important parts is him going back to work and proving to the division that he still is a valuable asset to the field. So he does this little speech, and that one speech that says he's very valuable and all that stuff, and that he was going to go because I'm not going to be a desk jockey, because that's where they're going to put him. They are convinced by that. So guess what? He has this really cool, suave scene, and I got to big it up to him. You know what I mean? This scene was pretty fucking cool, where he goes to his locker, he puts on the suit that he like, the same kind of suit that he had before, that nice purple suit, and he has this really awesome cane that I guess he had in there before. Magically had a cane for the fact that he never really needed one. But anyway, he has a really suave moment, and for that specific moment, you kind of root for him. You kind of root for him for being able to get his job back, being able to be on the top again. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's what I love about this show, that it gives us a moment to tell us about all these characters, and they give him their own kind of moment, whether they're a good guy or bad guy. Farouk had a 2-episode introduction, for God's sakes. We know who he is now, fleshed and all. We know, even if it wasn't in an episode, though, that would have been a very interesting 1-hour episode if we saw the interrogator and him coming to terms with his injuries. He is getting his life, trying to get his life back together, being a gay husband, and with 2 people that are in the same division, and they have a black son. Like, that in itself, for not for nothing, is an episode in itself. But they were able to tell it in a nice, tight 15-minute story. That worked. It was excellent. It was even just as intriguing as if it was watching it as an entire episode. But he has this little moment where he puts a suit back on, and it's kind of like putting his armor. He's going to war again, and he's very, very happy about that war where it's humans against mutants. But anyway, back to it, where David is subdued, his nose is bleeding, and all of a sudden we're seeing kind of like a metaphorical moment and a scene where David is inside in the astral plane, or in his mind, and he's seeing Lenny, and Lenny starts choking him out. But what's cool is that we're seeing scenes of him choking himself out, and Sid just kind of all of a sudden knows that, and that just like sends her into a world of like, I'm scared, I don't know what to do, and helplessness. Now, we can also talk about the little slight relationship that Carrie has with Carrie, the twins, whatever. Carrie is still upset at Carrie because she feels that in the astral plane where they were, that he had abandoned her. And this is where their conflict is starting. You know what I mean? And I think it's fantastic. I think it's great. And it goes to show you what they mean to each other. They're very important. The fact that she does not want to go inside Carrie's body, I think it's rising a bit of a problem, because I think that, he said you want to recharge your batteries. And so in a way she can is she getting weaker the more that she's outside of Carrie? Will she age faster because of it. So, that's a very interesting question to have for the next season. Will she reconcile with Carrie? Are we going to see her outside of Carrie's body for a longer period of time in the next season? Like that's something that'll be very interesting to find out. So, but while we are still in David's subdued moment where he is being choked out by the devil with the yellow eyes, which I believe is so fucking cool, man. They showed him in those traditional long fingers that he has, like in the comic books, which I saw. It looks very, very interesting, and I'm so intrigued. I think it's amazing, and I cannot wait until to see where he comes out, because one of the things that I'm very happy about is that he is coming back for sure. He is definitely coming back for another season. And the reason why, and I will get there in a couple of minutes, because I think it's very fucking cool how they do this, because it makes everyone useful. Again, it gives everybody a purpose to come back. Even if we thought that they were such a small character, like they didn't need to come back in the next season, but they are and they will. So I cannot wait to see where that goes. So back at it. Sid is still worried. She's freaking out. Like she's seeing that David is dying before her eyes. So guess what the fuck happens? She bugs out. She starts running into the lab and they're all trying to stop her. And then all of a sudden she just thinks that the best thing to do is to kiss David. So what the fuck happens? Holy shit. The devil with the yellow eyes transfers out of David and then into Sid. Carrie sees this, and also the interrogator in the interrogation room. That says the interrogator like very concerned as well. Like he's like saying, are you seeing this? Because D3 is also seeing what's going on. And so Sid is now the devil with the yellow eyes inside, right? Carrie comes in, and then all of a sudden Sid touches Carrie. Now Carrie is the devil with the yellow eyes because of Sid's powers. She has transferring powers. So somehow the devil with the yellow eyes has transferred out of David into Sid into Carrie. Now she's fighting her way out because we know that she's very like into fighting and all that. So she's very athletic. So she's trying to fight her way out of the building. But while she does that, David has come out of himself, right? And all of a sudden they're having a stare down. And while this is happening, Oliver, who is trying to figure out a way to like make the place not explode due to the high power that they've had to use for David to try to get Farouk out of his body, he has this moment where he has like a eureka moment where he says Melanie, and I remember getting floored. Okay, I remember getting floored because he's starting to get his memories back. And we said, finally, not finally, but like, oh, that's fantastic. You know what I mean? That means he's, coming to terms. He remembers Melanie, and that's great because that's what Melanie wants to happen. So we're seeing something, forming again, and and it looks positive, and that's great. But while this is happening is when he sees that. So when he was able to shut everything down, he comes out of the chamber that he was in, and while he was coming out, all of a sudden we see Carrie, who is charging David, and David is charging Carrie, and the devil with the yellow eyes, and then they have kind of like this Kamehameha moment where there's like this big explosion. Everybody's pushed back. The spirit of the devil with the yellow eyes comes out of Carrie and into Oliver. Okay, that is fucked up because it sent him right back into the chamber. And then all of a sudden, when he came out of the chamber, we can tell that there's a difference in him. He's a different person. And in that, he was able to get out of the building and get into his car and drive off. The devil with the yellow eyes is free. Farouk is out in the open, and he left Summerland a wasteland. Everybody was knocked the fuck out. All these fantastic great scenes that everybody subdued. Melanie subdued, Patanomy subdued. Everybody's fucking, down for the count. And all of a sudden, now we see Oliver, who we thought had a chance of getting his life back, is now not going to get his life back at the moment because now he will be the face of the new villain for the show. I mean, that's the way that I'm seeing that's going to happen, because they have this really fantastic scene where the personality of Oliver is inside him still, because he's, you know, he's singing and he's got this kind of like quirky sense of humor where he had before, but now we know it's the devil with the yellow eyes inside him. So that's fantastic. We get to see basically like with David, how there was two personalities and they were just working in one. Now that we're getting that same thing again, where we got Oliver's personality and devil with the yellow eyes, Farouk's personality mixed into Oliver. And that face Melanie made was just so sad. It's just very, you know, not a good moment. It was really sad. But onward. He's driving in the car. They're driving away from Summerland, and in the passenger seat, here you got Lenny with her feet up, and they start playing this awesome song to like close out the entire show, and the credits roll, and just like every Marvel thing, they have a secret ending, and in that secret ending, it's kind of like the resting period. You know what I mean? And in that resting period, Sid is talking to David and how, you know, things are going to be good. But then all of a sudden, some orb comes, scans David, and then traps him inside the orb. It reminded me of Superman when they get put inside the crystal and they take him to the Phantom Zone. So he's screaming, "Get me out of here, get me out of here, get me out of here." And he goes away. So not only is Farouk gone, but now David is gone. What a fucking season finale that is. That just blows, bro. Like, that's the way to end a season anyway. I always like it where questions are answered, and there's nothing wrong with starting up some new questions. Like, where the fuck did David go? Where the fuck is Farouk going? Well, we know it's somewhere that is south, because Lenny said that she wants to go somewhere warm. And I agree with that. There's no more northern than the cold. But I think that's about all we have here. I think I've talked way too much about Legion's season finale, and I cannot wait to get back at it to give you guys the scoop and how I feel about these Legion episodes. But this season was fantastic. Might release an episode about the Legion season, about its entire season. We'll have a little discussion. I don't want to talk too much about it because I've talked way too much about this episode. So like always, you can follow me, subscribe please, and have questions. Just type it in. I will make sure that I can answer every single one. And just go to facebook.com/whatthehellpcast, twitter.com/thehellpcast, instagram.com/whatthehellpcast. You can follow me on YouTube. You can follow me on SoundCloud. You can follow me on Podbean, Podbase, Stitcher Radio. Anywhere you like to listen to podcasts, I will be there for your listening pleasures. Okay? I promise. If you have any questions, just like I said, you can email me at whatthehellpcast@yahoo.com, or you can just do it on any one of those social media sites. Okay? But without further ado, this is Lumotional Lou, the Legion season finale, and I just got one thing to say. It's been Lumotional.